The bullet missed Étienne's head by inches, slamming into the ancient mud wall behind him. He didn't flinch. Across the smoking battlefield, a figure in sand-colored robes lowered a rifle, and he recognized those eyes. The same eyes that had looked at him with desire just 3 nights ago under the desert stars. The same hands that had touched his face with tenderness now gripped a weapon aimed at his heart. Amina, his guide, his lover, his enemy. She'd been playing him from the start, and the worst part, he'd been playing her too. Every kiss had been a lie, every whispered promise, a betrayal waiting to happen. The woman he'd fallen in love with was the daughter of the most wanted rebel leader in Morocco, the Lion of Marrakesh. And Étienne? He was the French spy sent to destroy them all. Now they stood on opposite sides of a war neither could walk away from, and only one of them would leave this desert alive. The evening call to prayer echoed across Marrakesh's Jemaa El Fna square as Étienne Moreau threaded through the crowded marketplace. Snake charmers competed with spice vendors for attention, while the dying sun painted everything amber and gold. He'd been searching for 3 days, and every guide had turned him down the moment they heard his French accent. Some spat at his feet, others simply walked away. Then he saw her. She stood behind a small wooden stall covered with hand-drawn maps, arguing with 2 men who towered over her. Even from a distance, Étienne could tell they were her brothers, same sharp nose, same defiant chin. But where they postured and gestured wildly, she remained perfectly still, arms crossed, until she said something that made them both step back. Whatever words she'd used, they'd landed like punches. Étienne approached cautiously. "I'm looking for a guide to the southern territories." The brothers laughed. The older one, built like a boxer, sneered. "You hear that, Amina? The Frenchman wants someone to hold his hand in the desert." But Amina didn't laugh. She studied Étienne with eyes the color of burnished steel, taking in everything. His dusty boots, his sun-darkened skin, the way he stood with weight evenly distributed like a man used to carrying weapons. "The southern routes are dangerous," she said in perfect French. "Bandits, heat stroke, French patrols that shoot first and ask questions never. I'm aware of the risks." "Then you're either brave or stupid." She switched to Arabic, speaking so quickly her brothers couldn't follow. "And no one in this market will take you. We don't guide the people who occupy our country." Étienne responded in the same language, his accent carrying the distinctive lilt of Fez. "Then why are you still talking to me?" Something flickered in her expression. Surprise, maybe respect. She named a price that would have hired 3 experienced guides for a month. Her brother's jaws dropped. Étienne didn't blink. "Done, on one condition." Frenchmen always have conditions. "I need someone who won't abandon me if things get dangerous." Amina leaned forward, and he caught the scent of desert sand and gun oil. "Monsieur, I'm the danger." Her hand shot out, calloused from reins and rifle grips, scarred across the knuckles. Étienne shook it, feeling the strength in those fingers. As their eyes met, something passed between them. Not trust, not yet, but recognition. 2 predators acknowledging each other across a watering hole. "We leave before dawn," she said. "City gates, don't be late." As Étienne walked away, the younger brother hissed at Amina. "Father will be furious. You know what the French are really looking for." "That's exactly why I'm taking the job," she replied softly. "Keep your enemies close, little brother, especially the ones who speak Arabic like they were raised by one of us." Pre-dawn cold bit through Étienne's jacket as he reached the city gates. Amina was already there with 3 camels, 2 for riding, 1 loaded with supplies. She wore practical traveling clothes, layers of cotton and wool that hid her shape, a scarf wrapped to protect against sun and sand. The rifle across her back was clean and well maintained. "You're early," she observed. "I respect people's time. Most Frenchmen don't respect our time, or our land, or our—" She stopped herself, jaw tight. "The 3rd camel is for your equipment. I assume you have equipment?" Étienne gestured to his pack. Inside were archaeological tools, brushes and measuring instruments, notebooks and reference books. But buried beneath them were military-grade maps, a compass accurate enough for artillery calculations, and surveying equipment that had nothing to do with ancient ruins. He'd been careful with the packing, but Amina's eyes lingered on the bulging canvas anyway. "You travel heavy for an archaeologist," she commented. "Thorough research requires thorough preparation." She made a sound that might have been agreement or skepticism, then set about securing the loads with practiced efficiency. Étienne helped where he could, surprised when she nodded approval at his rope work. "You've handled camels before." "I spent 2 years in Algeria." "Ah," the single syllable carried volumes of judgment. "Occupation or observation?" "Study," he lied. "The university in Algiers has an excellent—" "Lieutenant Moreau!" They both turned. A French patrol was approaching, led by a young officer whose crisp uniform screamed fresh from Paris. He smiled at Étienne with the easy confidence of the colonizer. "Didn't expect to see you here. Does Colonel Dufour know you're—" "Captain Rousseau." Étienne's voice could have frozen wine. "I'm on personal leave, pursuing private academic interests." The officer's smile faltered as he noticed Amina, who'd gone very still. "And your guide? Is she trustworthy?" "She comes highly recommended." "Still, a woman alone with—" "Thank you for your concern, Captain. We're on a schedule." Étienne swung onto his camel with enough authority to end the conversation. Rousseau saluted reflexively before seeming to remember this wasn't a military situation. As they rode through the gates into the lightening desert, Amina said nothing, but her hand never left her rifle, and Étienne felt her gaze boring into his back like a blade searching for the space between his ribs. Their first camp was in the foothills, where scattered rocks provided windbreaks and the last stubborn scrub offered fuel for a fire. Étienne fumbled with the kindling, trying to remember the technique from his training manual. After the third failed attempt, Amina knelt beside him without a word. "Bank the stones like this," she demonstrated, her movements economical and sure. "The wind comes from the north at night. You create a pocket where the coals can breathe, but the flames won't scatter." Her hands arranged the fuel with the confidence of someone who'd been doing this since childhood. "My father taught me this when I was 6. Their fingers brushed as Étienne added a piece of dried camel dung to the arrangement. Both jerked back as if scalded. The fire caught, crackling to life between them, casting dancing shadows across Amina's face. She poured mint tea from a battered pot, the sweet steam rising between them. "You're not really an archaeologist, are you?" Étienne accepted the glass, their fingers carefully not touching this time. "What makes you say that?" "Real archaeologists get excited about pottery shards. You haven't looked at the ground once. You keep watching the horizon like you're expecting company." She sipped her tea. "And that captain called you lieutenant." "I served during the war. Old habits. The Great War ended 5 years ago. Soldiers don't keep looking over their shoulders unless they have recent reasons." She set down her glass. "So, what are you really searching for in my desert?" "Evidence of a lost tribe. Pre-Islamic settlements that might change our understanding of North African—" "You're lying." But she said it without heat, almost with amusement. "Though I appreciate the effort, most French don't bother with elaborate stories. They just take what they want and call it civilization." Étienne studied her across the fire. "If you think I'm lying, why did you agree to guide me?" "Maybe I have my own reasons for wanting to see what you find." She pulled her blanket tighter. "Or maybe I'm just tired of watching my people turned away from opportunities while foreigners strip our country for parts." "Is that what you think I'm doing?" "I don't know yet." Her eyes met his, and in the firelight, they gleamed like polished obsidian. "But I'm going to find out." The silence stretched between them, filled with the crackle of flames and the distant howl of jackals. Finally, Étienne spoke, his voice softer than before. "Your father, the one who taught you about fires. What else did he teach you?" Amina was quiet so long he thought she wouldn't answer. "That education is the greatest weapon against oppression. That knowing your enemy's language means you can hear him plotting. That loving your country means being willing to die for it, but more importantly, being willing to live for it in the small, hard ways nobody writes songs about." He sounds like a wise man. He is. She stood abruptly, brushing sand from her clothes. "Get some sleep, Monsieur Moreau. The real desert starts tomorrow, and she doesn't forgive weakness." As she walked to her bedroll on the opposite side of camp, Étienne watched her go. He thought about the dossier locked in his pack. Target, General Tariq the Lion Zahiri. Occupation, rebel leader. Threat level, extreme. Known family. One daughter, approximately 25 years old, believed to be involved in intelligence gathering. He looked at Amina's silhouette against the stars and felt something twist in his chest that had nothing to do with his mission and everything to do with the woman who taught him how to build a fire that could survive the desert wind. Tomorrow would bring them deeper into danger. But tonight, lying under stars that looked like shattered glass scattered across black silk, Étienne let himself imagine, just for a moment, a world where he wasn't a spy and she wasn't his enemy, where the attraction crackling between them could be something other than the prelude to betrayal. The desert wind whispered secrets he couldn't yet translate, but somewhere in the darkness he heard Amina's voice joining the ancient song her ancestors had sung to survive this beautiful, merciless land. And despite every instinct screaming at him to maintain professional distance, Étienne found himself memorizing the melody, knowing that whatever happened in the days to come, he would carry the sound of her voice into whatever fires waited ahead. The sandstorm hit on their third day like the fist of an angry god. One moment the sky was clear and blue, the next it had turned the color of old bronze, and the wind was screaming warnings in a language older than human memory. "There!" Amina pointed to a dark slash in the rocks ahead. "Cave, move!" They drove the camels hard, reaching the shelter just as visibility dropped to nothing. Inside, the cave was surprisingly deep, the entrance narrow enough to block most of the wind but not the sound, a howl that seemed to come from the throat of the world itself. Étienne's hands shook as he secured their supplies. Adrenaline, he told himself, just adrenaline, not fear, but Amina saw. "First Khamsin?" she asked, using the Arabic word for the seasonal sandstorms. "Is it that obvious?" "You hit it better than most." She pulled dried meat and dates from her pack. "We'll be here a while. These storms don't hurry for anyone." Hours blurred together in the dim light. They rationed water, conserved energy, and eventually, inevitably, started talking. Not the careful verbal sparring of the past days, but real conversation born from enforced proximity and the fundamental human need to fill silence with something other than howling wind. Amina taught him desert survival songs, her voice rising and falling in rhythms that mimicked water flowing over stones. When Étienne recited Rimbaud's Le Bateau Ivre to pass the time, she shocked him by continuing the verse in Arabic translation. "You know Rimbaud?" His surprise made her laugh. "My father has a library that would make your French professors weep. He believes that to defeat an empire, you must first understand its soul." She wrapped her arms around her knees. "So I grew up reading your poets, your philosophers, your military strategists. Know what I learned?" "What?" "That France talks beautifully about liberty and equality while building an empire on the backs of people they don't bother to see as human." Her voice carried no anger now, just bone-deep weariness. Rimbaud understood. He saw through the beautiful lies. That's why he left France and never came back. Étienne was quiet for a long moment. "My nurse was Algerian, Yasmin. She practically raised me while my father was..." He stopped. "She told me stories about desert queens and warrior kings, about cities made of gold and wisdom that predated Rome. My father fired her when he found out, said she was filling my head with fairy tales." "Were they? Fairy tales?" "No," he said quietly. "They were history, just not the history France once told." Amina looked at him then, really looked, and he saw her walls crack just slightly. "Why do you speak Arabic so well?" Yasmin insisted. "Said if I was going to live in a Muslim household, even as the master's son, I should be able to thank the servants in their own language, to pray if I wanted, to understand the call to prayer instead of just hearing noise." He met her eyes. "She taught me that every language carries a different way of seeing the world, that when you learn someone's words, you learn their heart. Your father must have hated that. He still does." This was dangerous territory, dancing too close to truth. He wanted a son who'd be a proper French officer. Instead, he got me. "And what are you?" The question hung between them like smoke. Étienne could have deflected, should have deflected. Instead, he found himself saying, "I'm still trying to figure that out." Outside, the storm intensified. Sand hissed against rock like 1,000 serpents. Amina shifted closer, not touching, but near enough that he could feel her warmth in the cooling cave. "I've never guided someone I actually wanted to keep safe before," she admitted. His heart kicked against his ribs. "Why me?" "I don't know yet. Maybe because you're not like the others. Or maybe," she trailed off, shaking her head. "This is foolish." "What is?" "This, us, sitting here pretending we're not hiding things from each other." But she didn't move away. "You want to know something true? I'm terrified, not of the storm, of what happens when we reach the Yaqui ruins and I discover what you're really after. Of finding out you're exactly like every other Frenchman who smiled at me while planning to take something precious." Étienne reached out slowly, giving her time to pull back. When she didn't, he touched her hand where it rested on her knee. Her fingers were cold. "I've never wanted to stay lost before," he said. "But here now, with this storm keeping the rest of the world away, I'm in no hurry for it to end." Her hand turned, palm to palm, fingers threading through his. They sat like that as the Khamsin raged, not speaking, barely breathing, both knowing this moment was stolen time that would cost them dearly when the bill came due. When sleep finally claimed them, they'd migrated closer, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist, their bodies curved together like parentheses around everything they couldn't say. 3 days later, they reached the village of Ait Ben Hadou, its ancient kasbahs stacked like children's blocks against the foothills. Amina tensed as they approached, her eyes scanning the terrain with practiced alertness. "We need to resupply here," she explained, "and rest the camels, 2 days, maybe 3. I thought you said these villages weren't safe for French travelers." "They're not, which is why you're going to be my husband." Étienne nearly fell off his camel. "Your what?" "Husband. It's the only explanation for why a Berber woman would be traveling alone with a foreign man." She said it matter-of-factly, as if proposing marriage, even fake marriage, was no more significant than choosing which route to take. "We'll say you're a merchant I met in Marrakesh, that you're considering converting to Islam. The elders are more tolerant of such things than the French authorities." "And they'll believe this?" "They'll pretend to believe it, which is all that matters." She glanced at him. "Unless you have a better idea for not getting your throat cut in your sleep?" He didn't. So that's how Étienne found himself bowing respectfully to village elders, sitting through a ceremonial meal where curious eyes tracked his every movement, and following Amina to a small room in the guest quarters where they had been assigned to stay. Together. The room was simple, woven rugs on packed earth floors, a low table, cushions for sitting, and one sleeping mat in the corner. "1. I'll sleep outside," Étienne offered immediately. "And insult our hosts? No, we share the room like any married couple would." Amina set down her pack, keeping her back to him. "I trust you to be a gentleman." "Of course," but his mouth had gone dry, and when she began unwrapping her travel scarf, revealing the long column of her throat, he found himself looking away quickly, heat rising in his face. That evening, they were invited to dine with several families. An elderly woman asked how they'd met, her eyes twinkling with the universal delight of matchmakers everywhere. Amina answered without hesitation. "In a bookshop in Marrakesh. I was looking for a particular manuscript." "Ibn Arabi's commentary on desert mysticism," Étienne interjected smoothly, surprising himself. "Yes, and this man, this French merchant, he'd just purchased the only copy." Amina's eyes sparkled with mischief. "I told him that book was too precious for someone who probably couldn't even read classical Arabic. And I told her," Étienne continued, caught up in the fabrication, "that if she wanted it so badly, she'd have to teach me to read it properly, 1 chapter at a time." "So you fell in love over poetry?" The old woman clasped her hands together. They glanced at each other, the lie flowing so naturally between them that for a moment it felt like memory instead of invention. "Something like that," Amina said softly. Later, after the meal, several elderly women cornered Amina and returned her to their room with her hands covered in intricate henna patterns, traditional wedding designs. Étienne stared at them in the lamplight, at the delicate flowers and geometric patterns that seemed to bloom across her skin. "It's beautiful," he said, and meant it. "It'll fade in a few weeks." But she held her hands up to the light, studying the designs with an expression he couldn't read. "My mother was supposed to do this for my actual wedding." before she died, bringing me into the world. I'm sorry. Don't be. I never knew her, so the grief is abstract, like mourning a story instead of a person. She lowered her hands. My father never remarried, said he'd already found the love of his life once, and once was more than most people get. Do you believe that? That there's only one great love? Amina was quiet for a long moment. I used to think love was a luxury, that fighting for freedom meant sacrificing personal happiness. But lately, she looked at him then, really looked, and the vulnerability in her face made his chest ache. Lately, I'm starting to wonder if maybe love is another form of resistance. If maybe choosing to open your heart in a world designed to harden it is its own kind of rebellion. Étienne moved before he could think better of it, crossing the small room to where she sat. He knelt in front of her, carefully taking her henna'd hands in his. Amina. This is a terrible idea, she whispered. I know. We're lying to these people, to each other, to ourselves. I know. I should send you away right now. Yes, he agreed. You should. But neither of them moved. The lamp guttered, casting shadows that danced across the walls like prophecies. Outside, someone was singing, the melody mixing with the evening call to prayer from the small mosque at the village center. May I kiss you? Étienne asked in Arabic, formal, giving her every chance to refuse. Amina's answer was to close the distance between them, her henna'd hands cupping his face as she pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, both of them terrified of breaking whatever fragile thing was forming between them. Then, her fingers slid into his hair, and his arms wrapped around her waist, and gentle became desperate, became inevitable. They broke apart, breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. This cannot happen, Amina said, even as her hands tightened in his shirt. I know. I'm using you. You understand that, don't you? This was always a mission. I know. He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. I'm using you too. Or I was supposed to be. But somewhere between Marrakesh and here, between the sandstorm and the songs and the way you look at the desert like it's holy, I forgot how to lie to myself about what I'm feeling. What are you feeling? Terrified, he admitted, and more alive than I've been in years. Amina kissed him again, softer this time, almost sad. When this is over, when you discover what I really am, what my father is, what we're really fighting for, you're going to have to choose your country or your conscience, your mission or, she didn't finish, or you. I'm not asking you to choose me. I know, that's what makes it worse. He stood, putting necessary distance between them. I should sleep outside after all. No, she caught his hand. Stay. Just stay. We can lie here like civilized people and pretend this is normal, that we're really married, that tomorrow won't bring choices neither of us wants to make. So they lay down on opposite sides of the single mat, a careful foot of space between them, both staring at the ceiling and listening to each other breathe. Sometime in the deepest part of night, that space closed. When dawn came, they woke tangled together, her head on his chest, his arm holding her close, both pretending to still be asleep so they wouldn't have to face what they'd become in the darkness. The henna on Amina's hands had darkened to the color of dried blood. The oasis appeared like a miracle, a slash of impossible green in the endless beige, fed by an underground spring that bubbled up cold and clear. Palm trees provided shade, and the natural pool was deep enough to swim in. After the dust and heat of travel, it looked like paradise. It was also a rebel supply cache, though Étienne wasn't supposed to know that. While Amina set up camp, claiming she needed to check the water quality and scout the perimeter, Étienne took the opportunity to examine the oasis more carefully. Behind a cluster of rocks, he found what he was looking for: supplies wrapped in oilcloth, hidden but not well enough, medicine, ammunition, maps with markings that matched intelligence reports about rebel movement. His chest tightened. He'd suspected, of course, but suspecting and knowing were different countries, and the border between them was made of broken hopes. When Amina returned, she suggested they swim to cool off. The water is safe, she assured him, and we're alone for miles. No one will see. They swam modestly, she in a long shirt and loose pants, he in his trousers, but the intimacy of shared water, of playful splashing in the way her wet hair clung to her shoulders, was undeniable. For a few hours, they let themselves pretend, let themselves be just two people falling in love in one of the most beautiful places on earth. "I have a scar," Étienne said, pointing to a puckered mark on his ribs, "shrapnel from the war. Or at least, that's what I tell people. And the truth? Training accident. Embarrassingly mundane." He traced a similar scar on her shoulder. "What about this one? Rifle recoil when I was 12. I didn't hold it properly and it kicked back hard enough to tear the skin." She didn't pull away from his touch. "My father was furious, not at me, but at himself for not teaching me better. He spent weeks showing me the right stance, the right grip, making sure I'd never be hurt by carelessness again. He sounds like a good father. The best." Her voice carried fierce pride. "Everything I am, everything I can do, I learned from him. He taught me that being a woman doesn't mean being weak, that our traditions can coexist with progress, that loving your country means fighting for the people, not for lines on a map drawn by strangers." Étienne wanted to ask more, wanted to dig into the careful way she spoke about her father, the protective fierceness in her voice. But asking would mean revealing that he knew or suspected, and this moment was too precious to shatter with interrogation. Instead, he told her about his nightmares, the ones where he woke up choking, convinced he was drowning in mud. "The war did something to all of us," he said quietly, "broke something fundamental, and I don't know if what I'm doing now, the work I do, if it's trying to fix that broken thing or just running from it. Maybe it's both." She floated on her back, staring up at the strip of sky visible between the palms. "Maybe we're all just trying to make meaning out of the pieces we've been given, even if the pieces don't fit together the way we want them to." That evening, as they sat by their fire watching the stars emerge, Amina said, "Tell me about your dreams, not nightmares, actual dreams, the life you'd live if you could choose anything." Étienne considered lying, giving her some noble answer about service and duty. Instead, he found himself saying, "A small house near the sea, books, a garden, someone to grow old with who doesn't care that I'm terrible at keeping plants alive and that I talk to myself when I'm reading." He looked at her. Simple things, impossible things. Why impossible? Because peace is a luxury, and people like me. He stopped, realizing he'd almost said too much. People who've seen what I've seen don't get to have small houses and gardens. We get missions and consequences, and the weight of choices that hurt no matter what we decide. Amina moved closer until her shoulder pressed against his. "What if you chose differently? What if you walked away from whatever you're running toward? Could you walk away from whatever you're running toward?" Her silence was answer enough. Under the date palms, with the moon rising fat and silver over the desert, Étienne cupped her face with both hands. "May I?" he asked again, in Arabic, formal and respectful. This time she didn't answer with words. She kissed him like she was trying to memorize the taste of his mouth, the texture of his lips, the way his breath caught when her teeth grazed his bottom lip. He responded with equal hunger, hands sliding into her hair, pulling her closer, until there was no space left between them, until the kiss deepened into something that felt like drowning and flying all at once. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Amina pressed her forehead to his. "This cannot happen," she whispered, but her hands were still fisted in his shirt. "I know. I'm going to break your heart." "I know." He kissed her again, softer. "I'm going to break yours too, and we're both going to pretend we didn't see it coming." They made love that night under the stars, slowly and carefully, like people trying to stretch a single moment into forever. It was tender and desperate and achingly bittersweet, because both of them knew, even if neither would say it, that they were betraying each other even as they gave themselves completely. Later, when Amina thought he was asleep, Étienne heard her crying silently. He said nothing, just held her tighter, his own eyes burning with tears he couldn't shed, mourning something he hadn't even lost yet. In the morning, a runner arrived, a young man who spoke to Amina in rapid Berber dialect. Étienne couldn't follow the words, but he understood the urgency. The way Amina's face went pale, the way her hand instinctively reached for her rifle. "My aunt is ill," she told him, her voice too carefully neutral. I need to send a message back to my family. It will take a few hours. You should rest, recover your strength. We have a hard push ahead to reach the ruins. Another lie. But Étienne nodded and let her go, watching as she and the runner disappeared into the rocks. As soon as they were out of sight, he moved quickly, searching her things with practiced efficiency. He found the maps hidden in a false bottom of her pack, detailed intelligence about French troop movements, supply lines, patrol schedules, and a letter in her father's handwriting. My daughter, the spy you guide is Colonel Moreau's son. Learn what you can about his mission, then eliminate him before he can report back. The lion cannot be caged by a cub's trap. Étienne sat back, the letter shaking in his hands. Not because it revealed she was the lion's daughter, he'd suspected that for days, but because of the order to eliminate him, because she'd had a dozen chances in the desert to put a bullet in his skull and dump his body where no one would find it, because instead of following her father's orders, she'd shared her fire and her songs, and her body with the enemy she was supposed to kill. Unless this was part of the plan, unless everything, the kisses, the confessions, the way she'd said his name in the darkness, was just another weapon in her arsenal. He carefully replaced everything exactly as he'd found it, then returned to camp to wait. When Amina came back, her face was composed, but he could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes wouldn't quite meet his. "Your aunt?" he asked. "She'll recover. My father sends his blessings for our journey." "Your father sends his blessings for my execution," Étienne thought, but out loud he said, "I'm glad. Family's important." That night they didn't make love. They barely spoke. Both of them lay awake on opposite sides of the fire, mourning what was already dead between them, even as neither could bring themselves to say the words that would make it final. Tomorrow they would reach the ruins. Tomorrow the pretending would end. Tomorrow they would have to choose between the people they were and the people they wanted to be. But tonight, in the last hours before everything shattered, they lay in the darkness and listened to each other breathe, memorizing the sound for the lonely years ahead. The ruins appeared at midday. Ancient mud brick walls half reclaimed by sand, broken pillars that had once held up civilization, stone foundations that whispered of glory long forgotten. To anyone else, they would look like exactly what Étienne had claimed to be searching for, evidence of a lost tribe, archaeological gold. But Amina watched him survey the site with military precision, noting sightlines and defensive positions. And she knew, just as he'd known about her, they were done pretending. While Étienne set up his equipment, making a show of archaeological measurement, Amina slipped away to search his supplies. She found what he'd hidden, not just the military maps, but orders signed by Capitaine Dufour. Objective: locate and capture General Tariq Zahiri, known as the Lion of Marrakesh. Secondary objective: identify and neutralize rebel supply routes and safe houses. Authorization: lethal force approved. Her hands didn't shake as she photographed the documents. Years of training kept her movements calm, efficient, but inside, something was screaming. That evening, as they made camp in the ruins, Amina finally spoke. "What are you really looking for, Étienne?" He looked up from the fire, and the sadness in his eyes told her everything. "You already know. Say it. I'm looking for your father. And when you find him, I don't know anymore." He stood, moving toward her slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. "The mission was clear when I left Marrakesh. Locate, report, capture. But that was before you fucked the target's daughter?" Her voice was ice. "Before I fell in love with her." The words hit like a slap. Amina laughed, brittle and sharp. "Love? You don't even know what that word means. Love isn't a mission. It isn't something you complete and move on from." "You think I don't know that?" His voice rose to match hers. "You think this doesn't tear me apart? I look at you and I see everything I was raised to destroy and everything I want to protect. I see my orders and my father's disappointment and the career I've built on following commands without question. But I also see you. And I don't know how to reconcile those things anymore." "Then don't." She pulled her rifle from where she'd stashed it behind a fallen pillar. "Choose. Right now. Me or your mission. If I choose you, where does that leave us? You'll always wonder if I'm truly changed or just biding my time. And I'll never know if what we had was real or just you following your father's orders to seduce and eliminate me. Amina's finger tightened on the trigger. My father ordered me to kill you 2 weeks ago. If I'd wanted you dead, you'd already be sand-bleached bones. Then why haven't you? The question hung between them like smoke. When Amina answered, her voice had gone quiet, almost broken. Because I'm a fool. Because somewhere between Marrakesh and here, between your terrible fire-making and your French poetry and the way you say my name like it's something precious, I forgot that falling in love with the enemy doesn't make him not the enemy. It just makes you a traitor to everything you believe in. Before Étienne could respond, the sound of hoofbeats echoed through the ruins. Dozens of riders appeared from the desert, surrounding them in moments. At their head rode Capitaine Dufour, his uniform pristine despite the desert dust, his smile sharp as broken glass. "Lieutenant Moreau," he called in French, "your report stopped days ago. Colonel Moreau was concerned you'd been compromised." "Captain." Étienne straightened, and Amina watched his entire demeanor shift, shoulders back, voice clipped with military precision. This was who he really was. This was the man beneath the poetry and the gentle touches. "I've been maintaining my cover." "By sleeping with the target's daughter?" Dufour's eyes slid to Amina, who still held her rifle but knew it was useless against this many soldiers. "How thorough of you. Did you at least extract useful intelligence between encounters?" "Watch your mouth, Captain." "Or what?" Dufour laughed. "You'll defend her honor? She's a rebel, Moreau. She was probably gathering intelligence from you, same as you were from her, though I suspect your methods were more enjoyable." Étienne moved before Amina could process it, his fist connecting with Dufour's jaw, hard enough to knock the captain from his horse. The soldiers raised their rifles, but Dufour held up a hand, spitting blood as he stood. "Well," he said, rubbing his jaw, "that answers that question. You have been compromised." He gestured to his men. "Detain them both. She's coming with us for questioning about her father's whereabouts, and Lieutenant Moreau will face court-martial for fraternizing with the enemy." As soldiers surrounded them, Étienne met Amina's eyes. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For lying. For using me. Or for making me believe," her voice cracked, "for making me hope that maybe love could be stronger than history." "For all of it." He didn't resist as they bound his hands. "And for what I'm about to do." Before Amina could ask what he meant, chaos erupted. Gunfire cracked through the ruins as rebel fighters poured from hiding places, answering an alert Amina had sent hours ago. But this wasn't a rescue. It was an ambush gone wrong. Dufour's forces outnumbered them, and the rebels were cut down with brutal efficiency. Through the smoke and screaming, Amina saw a figure she'd know anywhere. Tall and straight despite his gray beard, moving with the controlled grace of a lifetime warrior. Her father, General Tariq Zahiri, the Lion of Marrakesh. He'd come for her personally, and it was going to get him killed. Amina broke free from the soldier holding her, driving her elbow into his throat and taking his rifle in one fluid motion. She ran toward her father, firing to cover him, screaming for him to retreat. But the lion was already surrounded, his own men dying around him to buy him seconds. Then Étienne was there, somehow free of his bonds, placing himself between the lion and a French soldier's rifle. The shot hit him instead, spinning him around, blood blossoming across his side. "No!" Amina's scream tore from her throat as Étienne fell, but he'd bought them the seconds they needed. More rebel fighters arrived, turning the tide, and in the confusion, the lion grabbed his daughter and they fled into the desert, leaving Étienne bleeding in the ruins that had become a battlefield. The last thing Amina saw before the dunes swallowed them was Dufour kneeling beside Étienne's fallen form and the expression on her lover's face, not victory or defeat, but something that looked like relief. Amina didn't speak for 3 days. They rode hard through the deep desert, circling back to the rebel stronghold hidden in a canyon system the French had never found. When they finally stopped, when her father finally tried to embrace her, she pushed him away. "He took a bullet for you," she said flatly. "The enemy, the spy, the man who was sent to destroy everything we've built. He stepped between you and a rifle and he might be dead right now and I'll never know because I left him bleeding in the sand." "Amina, don't," she held up a hand. "Don't tell me it was necessary. Don't tell me he was just doing his job, same as I was doing mine. Don't you dare tell me that love is a luxury we can't afford. The lion studied his daughter, seeing what she'd tried to hide. You love him. I hate him. But tears were streaming down her face. I hate that he lied. I hate that I lied. I hate that every moment between us was poisoned by missions and orders, and the fact that we were always going to end up on opposite sides of someone's war. She sank to the ground, exhausted in ways that had nothing to do with the ride. Most of all, I hate that it doesn't change anything. I'd still choose you. Choose Morocco. Choose the fight, even knowing what it costs. Would you? Her father sat beside her, his voice gentler than she'd heard in years. Because from where I stand, you already made a different choice. You didn't kill him when you had the chance. You warned him. I heard about the village raid, about how certain families were mysteriously absent when my men needed them most protected. You let yourself love him even knowing it would destroy you. Love doesn't change reality. No, the lion agreed, but it does change us, and what we're willing to do in reality's name. He stood, offering her his hand. Come, there's someone who wants to speak with you. Confused, Amina followed her father to a tent on the edge of camp. Inside, propped up on pillows and bandaged heavily around the ribs, was Étienne. She froze in the doorway. How your father's men circled back after the battle, Étienne explained, his voice weak but steady. They found me, brought me here. Against my extremely vocal protests, I should add. The lion smiled grimly. You saved my life. That buys you conversation, not freedom. Whether you leave this canyon alive depends entirely on the next hour. He looked at his daughter. Talk to him. Decide what he's worth. Then tell me if I should shoot him or recruit him. He left them alone. For a long moment, neither Amina nor Étienne spoke. Then she moved to sit beside his makeshift bed, close but not touching, both of them afraid to bridge that final distance. You were right, Étienne said finally. At the ruins, I was the man you feared, someone following orders without question, too afraid of disappointing my father to listen to my own conscience. But watching your father fight, seeing what he was willing to die for, he met her eyes. I understood, really understood for the first time what you've been trying to tell me, that this isn't about politics or territories. It's about people. Their right to exist without permission from foreign powers, their right to be seen as human. Pretty words from a man who helped hunt us. I know, and I know nothing I say will erase that. But Amina, his hand reached for hers, and this time she didn't pull away. I'm done. With France, with the military, with playing soldier in other people's countries. I stepped in front of that bullet because in that moment, the only thing that mattered was keeping your father alive, keeping you whole. And if that makes me a traitor to France, then I'm grateful for the treason. What are you saying? I'm saying I choose this, you, Morocco. The fight for something that actually matters instead of empire building dressed up as civilization. His grip tightened. I'm saying I love you, and I'm sorry it took nearly dying to understand that love without action is just another lie. Amina wanted to believe him. God, how she wanted to believe him. But belief was a luxury purchased with trust, and trust was the one thing they'd destroyed beyond repair. I can't, she whispered. I can't forgive you. Can't forget what you came here to do. Can't just accept that you've changed because you say you have. I know. So what do we do? Where does that leave us? Étienne was quiet for a long moment. You send me back to France, not as a spy, but as a witness. I testify about what I've seen here, the families torn apart by occupation, the brutality justified as peacekeeping, the casual cruelty of empire. I use my father's name, his influence, to turn public opinion, to make France see Morocco as people instead of territory. They'll call you a traitor. They already will. I deserted my post, helped rebels escape, took a bullet protecting the most wanted man in French Morocco. He smiled, tired and sad. Might as well make the treason count for something. And us? Her voice cracked on the question. What happens to us? I don't know. His honesty hurt more than any lie could have. Maybe nothing. Maybe we're just two people who met in a desert and fell in love at exactly the wrong time. Maybe that's all we get. This moment, these words, and the knowledge that somewhere in the world, someone understands exactly why we made the choices we did. Amina leaned down, pressing her forehead to his. "I hate you," she whispered. "I know. And I love you. I know that too." They stayed like that until her father returned, until decisions had to be made about prisoners and politics and practical matters of war. But for those few stolen minutes, they let themselves exist in the space between enemy and lover, between duty and desire, between what they were and what they might have been in a kinder world. When Amina finally told her father to let Étienne go, to give him safe passage back to French territory, the Lion didn't argue. He'd seen the henna stains still fading on his daughter's hands and understood what they meant. Some sacrifices weren't made on battlefields. "Go," the Lion told Étienne. "Bear witness, tell your truth, make this matter." As Étienne was led away, he looked back once. Amina stood in the canyon's shadow, her rifle across her back, her face wet with tears. She no longer bothered to hide. He raised his bound hands in what might have been a wave or a blessing, or simply goodbye. She didn't wave back, but her lips moved, forming words in Arabic that the wind carried to him across the sand. "Go in peace, and return, if you can, when peace comes with you." It was the closest thing to forgiveness she could offer, and it was more than he deserved. 3 years later, Marseille smelled like salt and wine, and the particular chaos of a port city where 1,000 cultures collided daily. Étienne stood at a café table, his hands wrapped around terrible coffee, staring at an envelope with a Moroccan stamp. The letter had taken weeks to reach him, forwarded through a dozen careful hands, each step designed to protect the sender's identity. But he knew the handwriting, would have known it blind and starved and dying, the particular slant of her letters, the way she crossed her T's with the same precision she'd used to sight her rifle. Étienne, the war continues, but differently now. International pressure, some of it from voices we both know, has forced France to the negotiating table. It's not freedom yet, but it's closer than we've been in my lifetime. I think of you often, wonder if you're safe, if the price you paid for telling truth was bearable, if somewhere in France there's a small house by the sea with a garden you're still terrible at maintaining. I saved the pressed flowers you left in my father's tent. They sit in a book of Rimbaud poems, another gift that found its way to me through secret channels. Sometimes I read them and remember a cave during a sandstorm and 2 fools pretending they could outrun history. Stay safe, my enemy. My love, my witness. A. Étienne read the letter 3 times, memorizing every word, then carefully folded it back into the envelope. His hands were shaking. They'd been doing that more lately, a souvenir from his time in French prison, where he'd spent 18 months after his testimony triggered a political firestorm. The charges had eventually been dropped under international pressure, but some scars ran deeper than law. "Monsieur Moreau?" He looked up to find a young journalist, notepad in hand, eyes bright with ambition. "I'm writing a piece about the Moroccan independence movement. They said you'd speak on record about what you witnessed." "They're wrong." Étienne's voice was tired. "I've said everything I'm going to say publicly. The transcripts are public record. Read those. But the people fighting in Morocco don't need another Frenchman making himself the hero of their story. They need action, not interviews." He stood, leaving coins for the coffee. "If you want to help, write about them, not about me. They're the ones bleeding for freedom. I just had the privilege of seeing them do it." He walked back to his small apartment, not the house by the sea he'd imagined, but a 3rd-floor walk-up with a desk facing the window and shelves crammed with books in Arabic, French, and Tamazight. His life now consisted of translation work, occasional teaching at the university, and the slow, unglamorous work of changing minds one conversation at a time. Some days it felt like enough. Most days it felt like penance. That night, he drafted a response to Amina's letter, choosing each word with the care of a man defusing a bomb. He told her about his work, about the small victories of students beginning to question colonial narratives. He told her about the nightmares that still woke him, not of war now, but of the moment he'd watched her disappear into the desert, certain he'd never see her again. He didn't tell her he loved her. They both already knew. Saying it again would only make the distance hurt worse. 2 more years passed in letters exchanged through dead drops and trusted couriers, in words carefully chosen to evade censors, in the dance of 2 people rebuilding trust across thousands of miles and the wreckage of everything they'd been. Then, Morocco achieved partial autonomy. The news broke on a Tuesday morning, and Étienne stood in his apartment reading headlines with hands that finally stopped shaking. It wasn't full independence, wasn't everything Amina and her father had fought for, but it was possibility. It was momentum. It was enough. He booked passage on a ship to Casablanca without letting himself think about what he was doing. If she didn't want to see him, she'd tell him. If it was too late, too much damage done, too many rivers of blood between then and now, well, he'd live with that too. The dock was chaos when he arrived. Families reuniting, merchants haggling, the particular electricity of a place in transition. Étienne stood with his single bag, scanning the crowd without real hope. Because why would she be here? How would she even know he was coming? Then he saw her, older. Gray streaking through her hair like silver rivers, scars he didn't remember on her hands, but the same steel gray eyes, the same way of standing like she was carved from bedrock in defiance. She wore civilian clothes, but carried herself like she still had a rifle across her back. Some things, apparently, military bearing couldn't erase, or maybe she did still carry one, hidden somewhere the authorities couldn't see. They met in the middle of the dock, 2 people who'd been apart long enough to have died and been reborn in the interim. Neither rushed, neither tried to manufacture drama out of a moment that held enough weight on its own. "You came," Amina said. "You knew I would." "I hoped. Hope is different than knowing. You're here. I'm here." She studied his face, cataloging changes same as he was cataloging hers. "It's been 5 years. 5 years and 37 days. He didn't mention that he'd counted every single one. You stopped writing 6 months ago. I thought that I'd moved on, found someone else, decided you weren't worth the wait." She shook her head. "I stopped because words weren't enough anymore, because I needed to decide if what we had was memory or foundation, if it could survive meeting again in a world where neither of us has to lie about who we are." "And," his heart hammered against his ribs, "what did you decide?" Amina stepped forward close enough that he could smell desert sand and gun oil, the scent he'd carried in his memory through prison and testimony and 1,000 lonely nights. "I decided that I'm tired of fighting everyone except the battles that matter, that I'm done punishing both of us for crimes we committed before we knew better, that maybe love isn't a luxury. Maybe it's the whole point." Étienne reached out slowly, giving her every chance to refuse. When she didn't, he cupped her scarred face in his scarred hands. "I'm not the man who walked into Marrakesh looking for glory and his father's approval. He died in those ruins. Good. I never liked him much anyway." She smiled, and it transformed her entire face. "The man who took a bullet from my father, who spent 2 years in prison for telling truth, who learned Tamazight through correspondence courses so he could read my father's writings in their original language, him I like quite a bit. Just quite a bit? Don't fish for compliments, Frenchman. I'm not..." He stopped, laughing despite everything. "Fine, I'm fishing. Tell me you missed me. Tell me these 5 years weren't for nothing. Tell me we get a chance to see what we could be without missions and lies and the weight of empires between us." "I missed you," she said it simply, like stating fact. "Every day, every letter, every moment I had to choose my country over my heart." Her hands came up to cover his where they still cradled her face. "But I'd do it again. All of it. Because we needed time to grow, to become people who could love each other without destroying each other, to earn the peace we're standing in. And have we? Earned it? I don't know. Honest as always. But I'd like to find out if you're willing to stay, to build something real instead of just surviving the wreckage of what we were." "I have an apartment in Marseille," he said. "Terrible heating, worse coffee, shelves filled with Arabic poetry I read when I miss you." "I have a teaching position at a new school in Marrakesh," she countered. "My father's dream, education as resistance, as foundation for the future. I tell my students about the French spy who learned to see Morocco as home instead of territory. They think it's a fairy tale. Is it? Not yet. But it could be. if we write the ending together. They stood like that for a long moment, the dock chaos flowing around them like water around stones. Then Étienne asked the question he'd been carrying for 5 years. What now? Now? Amina's smile was small but genuine, hard-won and precious for it. Now we're just two people who've been given a second chance. We take it slow. Exchange letters in person instead of through dead drops. Learn who we are without secrets between us. Build something honest instead of something beautiful and doomed. That doesn't sound very romantic. Romance is easy. It's staying that's hard. Choosing each other every day even when it's boring or difficult, or when we remember everything that brought us here. She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. I don't need grand gestures, Étienne. I need partnership. I need someone who sees me, really sees me, and stays anyway. Can you do that? Yes. No hesitation. For you? Absolutely yes. Then start now. She stepped back, creating space that felt like loss, even though they were still close. Walk with me. Tell me about your life. Not the life you had, or the life you wish you had, but the actual, mundane, beautiful life you're living. And I'll tell you about mine. And we'll see if those lives have room for each other in them. So they walked. Through Casablanca's streets, past markets and mosques, and the meeting places where old Morocco collided with new possibility. They talked about students and translation projects, about her father's declining health, and his plan to write a book about decolonization that no one would probably read. They talked about food and weather and all the small, precious things that make a life. And somewhere between the dock and the cafe where they stopped for mint tea, somewhere between his stories about terrible French winters and her description of teaching teenagers who'd never known a world before the fight for independence, something shifted. The weight they'd been carrying, guilt and grief and the ghost of who they'd been, began to lighten. Not disappearing, because some scars were forever, but transforming into foundation instead of burden, into the bedrock on which new things could be built. I can't stay long this trip, Étienne said as the sun began to set. I have commitments in France, students, a lecture series, a book deadline. Good, Amina sipped her tea. Because I can't drop everything to be with you either. I have my own students, my own work, my own life that exists independent of whatever this is between us. So we do this slowly, very slowly, with visits and letters and the knowledge that we're choosing this, choosing each other, not because we're caught in the romance of our shared trauma, but because we genuinely like the people we've become. I do, he said quietly, like who you are, admire who you are. You're terrifying and brilliant, and you have absolutely no patience for my philosophical tangents. Someone has to keep you grounded, she smiled. And for what it's worth, I like you too. Even when you overthink everything and use 5 words where one would do and insist on reading poetry out loud at the most inappropriate moments. That was one time. It was absolutely 3 times, and you know it. They argued about it good-naturedly, the conversation spilling into dinner, then a walk along the waterfront, then the realization that it was late, and they both had places to be in the morning. When they finally said goodbye, just goodbye, not farewell or anything weighted with drama. Amina squeezed his hand. Come back in 3 months, she said, not sooner. Give us both time to live our lives and make sure this isn't just nostalgia dressed up as destiny. And if it is, then we'll face that honestly too. But I don't think it is. I think we're 2 people who met at the worst possible time and somehow managed to become exactly who we needed to be for each other. But that only works if we keep becoming, keep growing, keep being more than just the story of what we survived together. 3 months later, Étienne returned. Then 6 months after that. Then 3 months again. Over 2 years, they built something real out of the ruins of their first attempt, something grounded in mutual respect and shared values, and the understanding that love without honesty was just another pretty lie. Eventually, Étienne applied for permanent residence in Morocco. Eventually, Amina spent a semester teaching at the university in Marseille. Eventually, they bought a small house in Essaouira, not Marrakesh, where too many ghosts lived, but a coastal town where Étienne could have his garden and Amina could watch the sea. The house was always full. Students from both their programs, activists continuing the work the Lion had started, refugees fleeing conflicts in other corners of the fracturing colonial world. Their home became a way station, a safe place, a reminder that fighting for justice didn't end with independence. It just changed shape. On their wedding day, simple ceremony, close friends, her father giving a speech that made everyone cry, someone asked how they'd met. Amina smiled and said, "In a marketplace in Marrakesh, he needed a guide, and I needed to know if he was worth saving." "And was I?" Étienne asked, playing along, even though he knew the answer. "Eventually," she said, and kissed him while their friends laughed and her father shook his head fondly, and somewhere in the distance, the call to prayer mixed with the sound of waves against ancient walls. It wasn't the romance they'd started in the desert, all heat and desperation and the certainty of doom. This was something harder won and infinitely more precious. This was love built on choice, renewed daily in 100 small ways, strong enough to survive not just their past, but their future too. And when their daughters, they would have 3, asked about the scars on their parents' hands, about the stories whispered at family gatherings, about the famous grandfather who'd helped free a nation, Amina and Étienne would tell them the truth. That love isn't always about grand gestures and perfect timing, but sometimes it's about 2 people meeting at exactly the wrong moment and choosing every day afterward to become exactly the right people for each other. That the desert teaches many things, but the most important lesson is this: some loves are worth the wait, worth the distance, worth choosing over and over again until choosing becomes breathing and breathing becomes forever. And their daughters, strong and brilliant and raised on stories of rebellion and redemption, would understand that the greatest freedom their parents had fought for wasn't national independence. It was the freedom to love honestly, in the open, without having to lie about who they were or what they believed. It was the freedom to come home to each other, again and again, across whatever distances remained between them. It was the freedom to build a future worthy of the price their generation had paid in blood and hope and heartbreak. That was the real revolution. And it was just beginning.